going to quickly go through creating a pizza model using Blender for the food project. This will involve modeling and then a little shaping using the sculpting tools, but we are actually just creating the game res mesh directly with no high-res counterpart. So I'm going to start off with a cylinder, add mesh cylinder. I'm going to go with a high number of vertices, 128 in this case, just so it's nice and smooth and round. I'm going to SZ, scale it down. So we have roughly the proportions we're looking for. While I'm at it, I'm going to Control A, apply all transforms, and also I'm going to right click and shade smooth. Then I'm going to go ahead and move the pivot point to the bottom there, and then just move it up so it's sitting right on the grid right there. And I don't know why it's got all this rotation here. Let me just get rid of that right there, and then I'm going to apply all transforms again. Perfect. Okay, so now I am going to start adding some divisions to allow it to kind of get rounded, and then after that I do that, I'm going to just do that shaping to give it the sort of irregularity and the sort of puffier parts of the crust. So tab in edit mode now. It doesn't really matter which part I start with, but I guess I'll start with the bottom here and select that bottom either face or that edge loop at the bottom. Just double check in there, and I'm going to go ahead and Control B to bevel this. And a reminder, if you didn't apply the transforms, this is not going to work so well. And I'm going to go ahead and use my scroll wheel to add maybe a few extra divisions so I get a sort of rounder base down there. I'm going to ultimately plan on deleting this face down there, but I'm not going to do that, I think, until after I'm done with all the sculpting. So I'm going to go up to here, and I'm going to do a similar thing when I Control B. Start to get the roundness on that part. It's not really too important, the sort of spacing of these things. You can see they're sort of wider at the bottom and narrower up at the top, but that's all right. Now I'm going to keep on going. I'm going to need some extra divisions and up and sort of subdivisions up at the top here to allow me to do that. Basically, crust where it sort of curves over and then goes down a little bit, sort of to have that kind of lower plateau where all the sort of toppings are. So I'm going to go ahead and I to inset that face a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and maybe just pull it in maybe as much as I want sort of crust, as thick as I want that crust to be. Maybe a little less, and then I'm going to go ahead and GZ and move that down so you can see I'm starting to create that sort of lower plateau I was talking about. So now that I've got that set, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and just add some extra divisions here so it's not totally flat. So I can just Control R and then use my scroll wheel and scroll up a little bit, something like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and just select that edge loop, and I'm going to turn on proportional editing and Alt S, maybe with a smaller range. You can see this is allowing me to get just a little puffing sort of right at those edges that I just created. Great. All right, so I'm getting close to the a finish of the actual modeling, but I do also want to add a few divisions to this. In particular, I just don't want this to be a single big n-gon, so I'm going to again inset that, and I'm ultimately going to be merging all of that together into a single point in the center. But then I can now, with having that inset, now I have this ability to add in a few extra divisions there. Now I'm going to go ahead and just select that final face, M, merge at center. All right, so as I mentioned before, I'm going to plan on deleting this bottom face later on because this is just meant to be a sort of top-facing pizza. So I've now got the model basically done. Now I'm going to switch over to sculpting. And for this, I'm not going to use Dyne Topo. I'm just going to be leaving the topology basically the way it is with some slight variation using some basic sculpting tools. So I can switch between things like, I can try different stuff out, but I'm going to start off with just grab. And maybe I'll go directly to the top view. And I'm going to F and then allows me to just drag left to right to increase or decrease the brush size. And now I'm just going to kind of go through here and just start to add that crust variation. You can see I'm going to periodically change the size of my brush if I don't like it. Sometimes it's going to be a little bigger, sometimes it's going to be a little bit smaller. You can see I'm not only varying the sort of outer diameter to give it some variation, but I'm also going to that inner diameter as well. That's sort of like perimeter of that plateau I was talking about, where all the toppings will be. So something like that. So that's already looking more sort of handmade. You can see I can also go into this sort of side view a little bit and start to kind of push and pull up and down a little bit to start to create that kind of variation. Just sort of at this point just doing just enough to start to make it look, again, handmade without going overboard, and not trying. I'm trying to stay roughly round here. You know, again, different pizzas, depending on how sloppy they're made, can be substantially sort of deviating from a circular shape when looked at from above, but we'll just keep it fairly circular. Again, you could just sort of like push and pull here and there just to sort of like change that kind of silhouette a little bit. All right, that seems like it's looking pretty good. Now, if you do want, you can do a little shift. Basically, I'm smoothing out that sort of slope right there a bit between the crust and the that sort of plateau. If you wanna try working with inflate, you can. That'll also do a nice job of like kind of puffing out different parts. If it's not behaving or not puffing out very much, you can always try increasing this strength up here. You can see that's starting to have a more profound or sort of like dramatic effect. Still pretty subtle, but you get the idea. So that's pretty good right there. That seems like a sort of nice, natural, handmade kind of pizza pie. I'm going to go back to layout, tab into edit mode. As I said before, we just go ahead and delete that bottom face. And that's the mesh. As far as UVing this thing goes, pretty straightforward. I'm going to tab into edit mode, make sure I'm in edge selection. I already froze my transforms before, but maybe just in case I'll just do it again. Yeah, I don't think I need to, because I already had those transforms frozen. So now I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm going to try an edge loop, maybe like this one. So basically what I'm trying to choose is roughly sort of the top facing faces are going to become, you can see their sort of own, actually I'm going to maybe go to the next one up. I think that's going to be a little bit better. So that's going to be my first seam, right click, mark seam. So we're going to get one island that's basically all that top stuff, and then I've got the rest, and this I'm going to go ahead, you know, basically all the sides, I'm going to go ahead and just separate those into halves. So basically this half and this half. So again, right click, mark seam, go into the back there, and do a similar kind of thing. There to there, mark seam, and select all, U, and I'm going to do unwrap angle based. So now if we take a look at the UV editing, the UV editor, you can see what we got there. Probably a good idea to try a new pack at this point. So I'm just going to select everything, UV, pack islands, just hit pack, and you'll notice when I do that, oh, that didn't really work very well. I'm going to instead try doing this maybe by hand. So I'm going to go ahead and just turn off my proportional fall off. So now I can go ahead and put this in the middle, put this maybe somewhere over here. You see I'm just getting these kind of close. So sometimes, for whatever reason, packing doesn't work. If it did repack just fine, you can ignore all this part, but you can see this is where I'm going to go ahead and just now select all these and scale them up. And I'm making sure to go just big enough that I don't go beyond the bounds of the perimeter of the, the UV space. So that's probably going to be just fine. That's going to be the model that I'll just export as an OBJ, bring into Substance Painter for texturing.